Welcome everybody, my name is RC. I am a photographer, director, author, storyteller, and a professor at the Newhouse School of Public Communications at Syracuse University. I wanted to talk to you about workflow, specifically in Lightroom. Right? Lightroom is a fantastic program, but I think that a lot of the times when people jump into it, they jump into it from a standpoint of quickly wanting to edit, right? You jump in and you put the pictures and you're like, edit, edit, edit. I love what it looks like. But you don't really spend a lot of time talking about the process of how to be able to organize yourself. Look, right now in my library, I have 395,046 pictures. I wouldn't worry about it, right? I'd say 46 are actually good. But within that, inside of my computer, if I were to take a look at my computer has almost a terabyte free out of 2 terabytes, right? Now I have about 500 gigs on a project. So I have a lot of space on my computer. How do I have that many pictures, right? 390,000 pictures inside of it. Well, it has to do with where I put the pictures and when I put the pictures, right? So follow with me here. One of the first things that you need to be able to do with this is to be able to come to an understanding of your pictures. Sounds weird, but think of it this way. Let's say that I were doing a job, right? And I were working on a job, or better yet, let's go for a vacation, right? If I go on vacation, the pictures that I'm looking at during the vacation, I'm probably going to be looking at those all the time, right? So if I'm in vacation, I'm scrolling, taking a look at them. Now, once I get back from vacation, a couple months later, chances are I'm going to look at those pictures a little bit less, right? The vacation that I took 10 years ago, I'm going to look at even less. So over time, your want to go take a look at them diminishes over time. You still want them, but you're not necessarily taking a look at them all the time. So a lot of the times when I work with people with Lightroom catalogs and things like that, what they say is, I want access to all of my pictures. And I'm like, that's great, but do you really need to have the pictures that you did on your vacation 10 years ago with you in your book bag? It's like, no, but I want to be able to get to them if I want. And I think that that's a key component, right? You want to make sure that you don't conflate access with availability, right? You want them available should you need them, but you don't want to necessarily carry them in your book bag. Now, if you subscribe to that, then it puts you in a position where you're like, all right, well, then there's a spot where I need them all the time, sometimes, rarely. That system is something that I call a hot, medium, and cold system. Hot pictures, I'm looking at all the time, all the time, all the time. From a business standpoint, I take a look at it as if you haven't gotten paid, it's hot, right? So I want to be able to access them immediately. So that is when I have my pictures on my computer. Specifically on my computer, I'm like, all right, I put a folder in the computer and I'm working on them. Now, once I get paid, once the invoice comes down a couple weeks after the vacation, you're going to determine the amount of time, that time span. Then those pictures go into a medium state, an occasional state. So when I move those into an occasional state, usually that's where I go with something like this, right? I carry them on a removable drive, right? So this is the SanDisk Professional blade here. So I would carry all of that stuff here in this. I like it because it's metal, it's super fast, and I can pretty much chug it across the room. I'm not going to do it now, but that's pretty much where I carry them in a medium state. Now, they come off of the computer, they come onto this. Now, once I get into the cold state, right, then I don't need them all that often. What I'll do is I'll transfer them into my Synology NAS, a network attached storage device. Think of it as kind of like a collection of hard drives, but instead of being connected to your computer, it's connected to the network that you have access to. So hot sits on the desktop, medium sits on a removable disk, and cold sits on the Synology or on a NAS. That's pretty much it. But there is a specific process for me to be able to work with this. And I figured rather than just tell you, medium, cold, move them around, what I thought would be cool is if we actually jump in and take a look at just how that happens. Now, in order for you to be able to see the entire process from start to finish, what I think is a good idea is for us to be able to just kind of take a look at a brand new catalog, right? you have your own catalog set up, and I don't want to necessarily distract you with all of the different pictures, so let's just take it from the point of import all the way through. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and just create a new catalog for now. It's not required, but I'm going to do it. All right, I'm just going to click on File, New Catalog, and I'm just going to put it on the desktop, and I'm going to call it Test Images. It doesn't really matter what we call it. I'm going to create that. I'm going to skip my backup for now. So now I have a blank catalog here, and inside of here, I just created my dummy collection set that I talk about in the classroom in a book. Now, what I want to do is I want to be able to start importing these pictures. And for us to do that, what I want to do is I'm just going to grab a picture, right? I just dropped off my daughter at daycare. So I took some pictures, right? I have a Canon R5, and I'll just take this card, and I'm going to take the card, and I'm going to put the card into my dock, right? So I'll go ahead and I'll stick this right in here. Once it picks this up, right, I can just do an include subfolders, and it's going to grab all of my pictures. Now, keep in mind, these are pictures of my daughter and my wife. I'm taking her to camp, right? So we're not looking at like magnificent images, but they're okay, right? It's my memories. So on the left-hand side here, you see that there is a where it's coming from. We're going to copy them. And this is the first thing that I would do here is from here, I want to be able to take this and put this into a specific directory. So instead of the hard drive, I'm going to put it on my desktop. Now, a lot of the times I like to keep my desktop relatively clean. This has nothing to do with Lightroom and more to do with, Franklin Covey and our organization, right? Anything that's on my desktop is like stuff that's on my desk. I'm working on it actively. Once that's done, then I put it in a drawer and I pull out the next thing that I'm going to work on and put on my desk. So I try to keep my desktop as clean as possible. A lot of it has to do with ADD. So I'm only focusing on the thing that I'm doing there. But right now I have it set to my desktop, right? And I have my previews as minimal. I'm not exporting duplicates. I'm going to make sure that I have my metadata set up. And I'm just going to do my 2023 copyright. I can add keywords in here. So I'm just going to say that it's Quebec. And I'm going to put it into a subfolder. And then that subfolder is going to be organized inside of one folder. Now, once I have that set, I also want to rename the files. And a lot of the times I tend to rename the files with a date and a 4-digit sequence. Right? I don't put any descriptive information inside of there because a lot of the times the descriptive information that I want is going to be inside of the metadata. Right? Rather than thinking about what the name is going to be, it's very unique on a specific name, the date, and a series number. Now, I'll talk about all of this stuff a little bit later, right? You can go ahead and just follow this for now. So inside of here, once I have this set, right, I just made a custom template for myself there, and I'm going to put it into a subfolder. Now, for me, the subfolder is going to be the same folder that I had there for when I went, right? So inside of here, I could say, all right, well, let's say it's 2023-0701. Right? So that's very specific. That's set up there. Now, that is being stored on the desktop, and I'm going to import all of those pictures. Now, while we're importing all of this stuff, let me just kind of show you what I'm importing to here. So this is the ProDoc 4. That's what I'm using here. So it's just a multi-bay that has USB-C and that has USB, and then you can put these inserts into it that have a bunch of different things, right? So let's see, you could put mags in there, SSD mags, you could put card readers in there, but this one is set up just for cards and a couple of extra spots should I need it. The good part about this is that I could actually dump multiple cards at once, which I think is pretty cool. So while that's cooking, that's what I'm using for that. Now, that's going to take all of that information and it's going to put it onto the desktop. Now, you want to be able to have a backup of all of this stuff, right? So it's important for you to have backups in different locations. This is what I usually do. You see that right there? That is a G drive. It's a big RAID drive. It's got multiple disks inside of it. And it's older, but SanDisk Professional has an upgraded version of it, right? So I've been using G-Tech, which is now SanDisk. for a very, very long time. I've done a lot of work with them, and disclosure, they have sent some stuff in the past for me to be able to take a look at and review. They don't control necessarily what it is that I say on it. I just kind of just talk about them, and I'm a fan. I think they do phenomenal work, and it's the drives that I trust. So, but basically, here's the layout, right? That G drive right there takes care of only one thing, right? All that does is time machine. For me, it's stacked up with information, right? It's stacked up with space, and all I'm having it do is back up the computer and back up the drives. We'll get to that in a second. But this entire thing is just basically copying over, and it's copying over using the ProDoc for card readers for that. All right, so that's pretty much done. Now, all of my images are inside of here, right? 735 pictures, and you're gonna have to forgive me here for a second. I'm just gonna have to take a look at my daughter. Oh, I miss her. Okay, so I have everything set here, and then what I'm gonna do from here is I'm just gonna grab all of these, and I have a dummy collection set. And I talk about this inside of the classroom in a book, right, that I wrote, fair disclosure. What I do here usually is every time I grab everything, I put it into a collection set that I have set up. But I don't necessarily want to create all of these different collections for my collection set. So I have a collection set for an event and then subsequent collections. That's not important for what we're doing here. I'm just trying to keep good habits here. I can just right click here. I'm going to duplicate my dummy collection set. And then I can just rename that collection set Quebec Camp Trip. Now I have all of these collections that I can use within that camp trip. So I'll grab my previous import, select all, I'm drag them into my all images. Once that's done, obviously I could just reject, pick, reject. But let's just say, for example, right, Command D to deselect. I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to pick this one. I have workflows that best practices for me that I do for how to be able to select pictures, how to be able to cull pictures and organize pictures. And I talk a lot about that in a book, the Adobe Classroom in a book, right? So if you want to kind of follow that, follow the logic behind that entire thing, I would suggest you get that, right? But let's just say that for right now, I have these 3 pictures. I'm going to grab the pictures now that I have here. And I could use my metadata and then, or actually my attributes is probably better. And inside of here, I can flag my pick pictures, drag them into the picked images collection. I have all of my stuff set up here, right? I've got all my pictures, and then I just made myself my picked images folder, and we're all set. From inside of here, right, I'm just gonna go ahead and just grab, it'll kill me, all right, if I do that. I kind of like this picture. I'll put it inside my picked images, make sure that that's picked as well. I have this one picture here, right? Nothing great, just something that I have. But all of this stuff is now set in my hot folder, right? I have to do some edits for this. So if you were to take a look right here on my desktop, I'm going to minimize that and minimize this, right? On my desktop, I have that folder. That folder has all of the images that I took, right? More often than not, what I tend to do is I tend to keep one of these kind of card carriers, and I'll usually put my used ones here until I get things backed up. And then I'll keep them face up if I'm using them, and then flip them over when they're full. But for right now, it sits here 1, sits here 2 locations. Now I want a 3rd location. So the 3rd location for me is going to be this drive, right? So you'll see that I have it here, my G-Speed shuttle. I want to use that as a time machine backup to back up the computer. So inside of your time machine, right, I'm going to go here. Notice I haven't backed up in a bit, so I got to do that soon. Cobbler's kids, right? Always don't have the shoes. So inside of here, I have 1.26 terabytes available, right? I'm running a little low. I gotta start changing some stuff here. And all this is doing is it's backing up the computer. Okay, good so far? Okay, I'm just gonna close this for the time being. So right now, there's my catalog. Here's the images that I'm working on. So what happens once I finish everything and I do my edits and I do all of that kind of stuff and I'm done, right? What I want to be able to do from here is I want to be able to take those images that are hot, being backed up onto the time machine, right? and I want to be able to not necessarily chew up the space on my computer. So what I could do is I could transfer them into a removable drive. So this is the SanDisk Professional Pro Blades. What I like about them is that they're based on NVMe, so there's no splitting disk. I like the fact that they're in an aluminum enclosure. Right? I could chuck this across the room and nothing's going to happen to it. And I like the fact that they're fast, right? So it's 2,000 megabytes a second. So I've edited projects directly on this drive, which I think is great. So it's tough, you can edit with it, and I can store all of my stuff, and it's small, right? So what I want to do is I want to be able to take this folder, I want to put it onto this thing. Now there's two different options. The first of which, in a second here, is this guy, right? So this is a shell for the most part, right? So this is the ProBlade Transport. Notice it's 0 terabytes because all this is just basically the shell. Look. So that I think is pretty cool. You can use this to be able to house your mag. Now, this is a USB-C connector. This goes to my laptop. So this is how I would do it in the field. However, a lot of the times when I'm working on projects, I'm probably working on big projects, small projects, and I'm using these drives for a bunch of different things, right? This could be a video. This could be that backup Lightroom collection, right? Or that folder. So sometimes I need access to more than one. In order for me to do that, I have this here. That's the ProBlade Station. So you'll see that there's 4 spots. Cool part about that is that that goes to 3,000 megabytes a second, and with these guys going to 4 terabytes, you could actually have 16 terabytes right here set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this. Let's assume that this one is empty, right? So I'm going to grab it and I'll stick it in here. Once I push it in, it clicks. That drive comes up, right? RC Backup 1. What I can do here is I'm just going to open it, and obviously I have a folder already there, so don't worry about that. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this folder here, and I'm just going to grab it and drag it into here. That's going to transfer all of that information, right? 23 gigs, less than a minute. Pretty fast. I like it. Now, once that's transferred over there, this is where you're going to freak out, I know. But I'm going to take all of this information and I'm just going to go ahead and grab that folder that's sitting on the desktop. And I'm just going to, there's my folder right here. I'm going to drag it into the trash. I know. Don't worry about it. This is how confident I am about it. I'm going to right click and I'm going to empty that trash. Freak out moment now. Because we're like, all right, well, where are those files? So watch what happens inside of Lightroom. Right? Inside of Lightroom now, when I go to try to edit those pictures, you see right here in the upper right hand corner it says photo is missing. Right? But the photo's still here. So what gives, right? Lightroom automatically grabs the original image and then it creates a thumbnail. And it makes a small, medium, or large JPEG thumbnail for the images that you're working with. So you'll still be able to see it. That's not a problem. The only thing you can't do, really, is edit it. Let's just say, for example, if I were to grab this file and I try to develop it, look, file cannot be found, photo is missing. That's when you start to panic, right? Because you're like, I don't know where it is. But we do know where it is. It's on that drive, right? So this is what we want to do. From here, I want to be able to link that drive. 2-step process. I'm going to right click right here in the center and I'm going to select go to folder and library. Now, here's why I want to do that. If I were to do show in Finder, it's going to say that it's missing and it's going to help me find one individual file. I can locate it and then it's going to find everything. But sometimes you're moving a group of files, right? Or a group of folders. Instead of working with an individual folder or an individual file, maybe you might want to move that group so it's easier to be able to just find the folder and update the folder location. So check this out. 2-step process. It's not that hard. Right click, go to folder and library. The folder in the library right here says it was on the hard drive. There's the folder and it has a question mark. So all we have to do is update that folder location. Right click, inside of here, find missing folder. I'm going to go to my desktop, and inside of here, I'm going to go to my backup, and I'm going to select the folder, and watch what happens over here on the right hand side. Click choose, back to the original photo. Now I can go back in and start editing. Not bad. Easy. Now watch what happens. Right. If I were to grab that backup folder and I were to just eject it, I'm going to grab that, I'll pull it out. This is the backup that's running now. Right? So now put this in my bag. Notice as you go to another picture, you may or may not be able to develop the pictures that you have if they did not create a large enough file for you to use. And you're going to get that file cannot be found. So that's not terrible, right? All that is you can edit it at that moment in time. But watch what happens, right? If I double click on this, photo's missing, it's grayed out. What can I still do? I can still rank, I can still sort, I can still pick, I can still move stuff into collections. You might even be able to export out a big enough version off of those thumbnails. Still, without even having this connected, right? But you know that, let's just say, for example, I want this file, or maybe this one, right? And it says photos missing. I'm carrying it with me. So all I really have to do is put this back in. The moment that that drive comes back up, you see the picture here, right? And I'm obviously underexposing these pictures a little bit because my wife's probably not all that pumped about me sharing pictures right now. But that's pretty much it, right? You take it out, bad. But you can still edit and you can still move. We just moved it over into that medium status. Now, the part that I think is going to be interesting here is that I still kind of want to back that up. This is where it gets a little confusing on Apple, right? If you're using Windows file versions and things like that, obviously it's the same thing, but it's kind of a little different here. Inside of here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my time machine icon, and I'm going to show you something inside of the time machine preferences. Inside of here for this time machine, I have it set to back up the computer, but I can also have it set to back up the individual drives that I put in. But it doesn't do it by default, right? Because you could have a lot of these different ones and you don't want to chew up all that space. So by default, if you go to your options here, it says anytime that you put in an external drive, what I want you to do is not include it, right? Don't include the external drives that you put in. So now I've plugged in all three drives, and notice that all three drives are being excluded. But if I want one of those drives to be included as part of the backup, all I have to do is highlight the drive and remove it from this list. That, I think, is a little cumbersome, right? Because what you're saying is click on the minus sign to include the file as part of the backup. So that takes a little getting used to. But once you have that set up, now you turn around and you have that drive, the big drive that's dedicated with all of that space backing up your computer and your removable drives. That's why I have as big of a drive as I do for that one task. Obviously, this is what I do for a living, so it's important that I have this stuff backed up, but it's also important for your own life, right? So these are the tools that I'm using now. You're going to scale them up or scale them down as you see fit. I have that set up there and it's doing the backups and things are great. Now I know that I could still come back here into my grid mode. And inside of here, I know that I can still see those if I eject those backup drives. So now I know that if I have this out, right, and I pull this out, I can still do whatever it is that I need to do. I can carry this with me wherever I want, and hard, right? Really hard. Rugged. Now, I have one of these docks also at the university that I use for when I want to be able to put multiple ones of those. But now this is kind of set up in its medium state, right? After a while, whatever determined amount of time you have, I want to be able to take those files and I want to move them from this medium state into cold storage. For the cold storage thing, I'm going to use something completely different. That's that network attached storage device, right? So it is a big jumble of disks that are connected to the network, and it has its own operating system. So the one that I'm using is this one. Now, don't freak out. You don't have to have something this big, and you don't have to use all of the drives at once. You'll notice some of these aren't even going on yet because I don't have any drives in them. I gotta get more drives. But I started small, but I wanted to be able to expand as much as I can. So this is from Synology. This is like the bulletproof NAS, right? Anybody who's a professional is using Synology drives. This is the best way, in my opinion, for me to be able to do this, right? I was using them. They've had me test a whole bunch of different ones, right? But I purchased my own a long time ago, and I've been with them for years. So I am a big fan. Now, inside of here, if we were to take a look, I started with a 4, and then I went to an 1812. Now they have them as an 1821 plus. They have all these different bays, and now there's a 2422, which is the new one. But it's basically a box with an operating system, and you put that stuff in. And mine is sitting there.
How don't I know?
I'm trying to upgrade all of that stuff. But it's good. It's reliable. It's set up there. And it's fine. Now, what I want to do is this. I want to be able to grab this, and I want to be able to take that file that's sitting in backup 1, and I want to move it to that network attached storage device. It is connected to the network. I'm connected to the network. I'm going to go to it. Yes, it's called Espresso. I'm going to go to my image vault, and I'm going to drop it into my backups, and I'm going to drop it into the specific year that I'm working with. Okay, so now that it's been moved here, I'm just going to grab it from my backup drive here, and I can delete it. Close this window. I know, more freak out time. But here's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into my Lightroom thing. Obviously, it doesn't know where it is, right? Because I deleted that file, so the photo is missing. But all we have to do is do the same thing, right? Right click, go to folder and library, see as it shows it in that removable drive. It's not there. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to find the missing folder. I'm going to go over to my NAS, which is connected to my network. Go to the vault. I'm going to go to the one folder where it is, click on choose, and now we're back in business. Right, so now we have all of the stuff set up there, and I can grab all of that information still. Right? It would help if I were in focus, but I can grab all of this, and oh, I am in focus. Notice I can go into the develop module. I can do any kind of changes that I want, and I'm pretty much all set. Now, I have access to be able to edit it while I'm here. But this is cold. Remember, this is going to be something that I'm not necessarily needing right now. Let's just say, for example, I'm going to take this and I'm going to eject it from my network, as it would be if I were not home. So I'll go ahead and I'll eject that. Notice that the photo is missing. But I still have access to the pictures. I could still see them, rank, sort, pick, move them around. So when I'm on the road, I can go ahead and I can still maneuver them, right? This is all predicated on the fact that these are your pictures from 10 years ago, your vacation of 10 years ago. The chances that you're going to be doing this, small. But what happens if somebody turns around and says, well, yeah, I kind of want that one file. Well, you know the name of the file. They're sitting at your drive at home. And remember that I said that the Synology is a box that's connected to the network with its own operating system. Well, what I'll do then is I can theoretically come over here and connect to that Synology. I can go to my file station. Inside of my file station, I can go to my backups. I can go inside of here. I can go inside of the drive. and there's all of the different files. So you have access to them over the web at any point in time. And there's apps that you can use to be able to connect and have access to those files as well. So you have access to those files. They just don't have to be with you all of the time. And I think that that's one of the powerful components of that hot, medium, and cold strategy, because you can have all of these levels of backup working with all of this, right? And I have the Synology connected to another Synology where it's mirroring itself. Obviously, that's something that I'm doing it for my work, right? But you can scale this up and down as you see fit. Now, should you have any questions on this, please feel free to leave me a comment. And I know that I've talked about a lot of different things and components here, right? We talked about the Synology stuff. Make sure you go to the Synology website to take a look at more information there. But I'll make sure that I leave links to all of these things inside of the description. Just a little bit of organization, and you're going to be all set. My name's RC. Thanks for watching.